Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. On this episode, we are talking about one of the craziest growth stories in health and fitness. We are, of course, talking about Hyrox. And more specifically, we are joined here with Gary Wan, Managing Director of Hyrox Asia Pacific, and one of the main parties responsible for bringing Hyrox over to Asia. Welcome, Gary.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Good intro?
Yeah, it's good. Eh?
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I know it was a time out of your schedule, so appreciate that.
No worries. It's a really cool studio you have.
It's nice, right?
Yeah,
I can't take any credit for it, but I'm glad you're here. The last time I saw you properly, before meeting you downstairs here today, we were in Singapore.
Yeah.
And it was a one-day event. I was emceeing. We just wrapped up, or we were coming to the end of the biggest ever Hyrox one-day event.
Insane.
You left because you were going to the airport to go to Melbourne.
I did.
For day 2 of Hyrox in Melbourne.
I did. It's a crazy weekend for us. You for our
split
APAC
the team in half.
Yes, we did.
And you still managed to pull off the biggest one-day event in Hyrox history.
Not just me. I mean the team.
The team, obviously,
yes.
But the team did.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Have you recovered?
Totally. I mean, we're already planning the next event in Singapore and also the Sydney event. Both of them will be a sell-out event, so we're very excited. But I mean, this is the magic of Hyrox, right? I mean, it's super scalable so that we can do events literally every week. And for APAC, we're just a start right now. And it's really fascinating to see how the sports grow in such a short period of time.
For sure. I mean, we're going to, I've got so many questions that I want to ask you about Hyrox specifically, right? The point of the podcast is, it's called Abnormal. Mm-hmm. We are a podcast for normal people who want to do or have done abnormal things. So hopefully the listeners are people that want to do abnormal things, but they just don't know where to start or what to do. But guests like yourself, we want to get on the show so that we shine a light on things that you're doing, bringing Hyrox to Asia and growing it in a crazy, crazy way. At some point you had to start somewhere, right? You had to do something. You've got a story of your own. So share with us a bit about your story. So where did you grow up? Were you grew up in Hong Kong?
Sure. I born and raised here in Hong Kong, and I went to UK to study for almost 10 years. And I returned to Hong Kong and I started the business of organizing event basically. I start off with just like a lot of the international students by organizing party events, music events.
It's a good target audience, students.
Uni parties, come on, yes. I mean, you got to do that. And but because of that, I started to know quite a lot of industry people and like-minded people, and starting to organize events and starting to really enjoy running events. I love the idea of basically, you turn an idea into reality. You work very hard, and a couple of months' time, you see your success in one day. Sometimes it's work out. Sometimes
is it always a success?
Well, trust me, like most of the time it's not. Sometimes you have good events, sometimes it's terrible.
So did you start that? Did you start that whilst you were at university in the UK? Were you running the events there?
Yeah, because it's such a big thing for the Chinese to go to UK and have this Chinese society where you group together all the Chinese Hong Kong people, and then football tournaments, like basketball tournaments, and then some party event afterwards, just to tailor for these group of people. And it's a big audience, and definitely a lot of spending power there.
Yeah, I feel like, so I went to university in Exeter in the UK. You were Sussex, right?
Yes.
I feel like every university has that one person who is responsible for the uni nights.
Yeah.
And I've got the person in mind at my university as well, who was, who's kind of set up a similar thing, almost like a mini student agency that ran these student events.
Exactly.
There's always that one person at uni that sees the opportunity for these events and like launches something out of it.
Yes.
And that was you in Sussex.
In Sussex, yes. And back then there weren't any Chinese society back then, and I saw like every uni they sort of have one. Why didn't my uni have one? So I sort of formed together, a committee and do it together.
Yeah. Awesome. So you've always had that sort of entrepreneurial itch to scratch.
Trying to make some money.
Trying to make some money. Isn't that what we're all trying to do? So when you were at uni, or even when you were at school, what was it that you thought you wanted to do when you grew up?
When I grew up, I think I always, in some way, I wanted, maybe because of my parents, I always think I will end up in doing business. So I study business management as well, even though I didn't really study much. But at some point, I think I know I will always end up wanting to start my own business. So I think during the uni period, I've sort of started at the event business. As soon as I graduated, I came back to Hong Kong. I actually started working in a company, at startups, as a salesperson to try to gain some experience. And
still in events as well?
No, actually, it was Groupon.
Okay.
I work under Danny Young. It's obviously a very successful entrepreneur, and learn his selling skills in Groupon. And I have to say, it was some of the toughest time that I have. I still remember I had to do like 6 contracts as minimum per week.
Jeez,
and my name is always in the bottom of the list, and it usually highlight in red.
God, that's hectic. But sales jobs, man, they all sound so intense. But everyone that I've spoken to, or even other podcasts or books that I've read, they're always like, selling is such an important skill. Whatever you end up doing, you need to be able to sell.
Totally.
And I think for you, like, we'll get onto that later on, but even when we're talking about sponsorships and selling the dream of what Hyrox can do and what it represents and the growth and all that sort of stuff, you'll carry that stuff with you, whatever you're doing, right? Okay, great. So you're raised in Hong Kong. You grew up in, or did some studying in the UK. Always had that entrepreneurial itch to scratch, which is great. It's a good bit of context. And so then we get to Hong Kong, and eventually, about 10 years ago now, you started your company, Hybrid.
Yes, but before that, there's actually a little bit of journey leading towards Hybrid. So I started a company called Sigma Production with another group of partners, and focusing on mainly in music events, party events, entertainment events. And we start from small events like a couple of 100 people to at some point with thousands and thousands of people. And we did events in Asia World Expos, like a massive wave party. But at some point, I'm like starting to realize, music events, it's not really what I want, really what I like. And so that's the reason why I sort of exited the company and started Hybrid Group, and mainly focused on sports and wellness events.
Interesting. So you dipped your toe in the music world. Wasn't for you, and then you kind of did something similar, starting your own company, still in events, but more down the sports route.
Exactly.
Because that's always something you've been interested in,
sports events. That's definitely one of the reasons, and also I think it's just different, because if I look at music events, you don't really have that strong stickiness, because it always comes down to what is the roster, who is the DJ, who is the
You're always relying on someone else
to
fill the headline.
But in another hand, sports event, it's if you love that sports, you always come back. Stickiness is high. So, and I think sports event and wellness event is the future, and it would never die down. So that's why me and my partner back then we decided to change the direction a little bit and focus on sports events.
Awesome. And so of those sports events, I saw that you've obviously now Hyrox, but earlier in the days it was was it Iris Yoga?
Yes.
At the AIA wheel.
Yes.
Is that where you're doing the events?
Yes, we're still doing that now, but in definitely in a smaller scale now. But we started off by doing quite a lot of different things. We tried different things. One of it is called Iris UX Game. It's pretty much a wellness and outdoor event, outdoor festival, where you have a yoga stage, you have a dance stage. You basically gather up different group of people who loves yoga and sports together. And
what was the reason? What sparked that idea? Was it? I mean, for me, I've got my own idea of like the Hong Kong demographic ever since I've moved here 4 years ago, and I have people come and visit. Everyone says the same thing, that people are so healthy and active.
Really?
Everyone's walking around the streets in like sports gear. Everyone's wearing like Lululemon or whatever. Everyone's doing yoga. And did you see that as well in that demographic, or what was it that made you start the like yoga wellness thing?
Definitely start because of yoga was such a big thing back then, starting to become a big thing. And I realized there actually is absolutely no events that focus on this group of demographic. So there are a lot of brands as, merging, like Lululemon and, a lot of different sports apparel brands and yoga studios. But there is absolutely no way for them to promote their service and products in an event sort of scenery. So we saw there's a market gap, and we tried to create something, and the result seems quite welcoming for everyone. Then we slowly grow it, not only yoga, and starting to add other sports elements into it, and seems like it's working. And bit by bit we grow to a 20,000 people sort of event.
Wow, it's a lot of people. That's a lot of people, but not that many people when we move on to and discuss the growth of Hyrox.
Yeah, Hyrox is insane.
That's a rocket ship. But anyway, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Okay, so that's a little bit about Hybrid, but that's still your company, right? You're still
correct.
That is still the agency or marketing sports agency that's working with the Hyrox team.
Correct.
Is that's the relationship between the two?
Yes.
So that's been going on almost 10 years, Hybrid, I believe. Almost your work anniversary on LinkedIn, I saw. It was like 9 years and 9 months. So
yes,
I'll be sure to comment. Okay, right. Let's get into Hyrox and how that came about. So for those people that don't know, if you've been living under a rock, Hyrox, what is Hyrox?
Hyrox, it's a new type of sports, what we call the series of fitness racing. And it is inspired by the fact that there's so many people in the gym going to the gym without a form of competitions to motivate them why they could go back to the gym and training. And we saw this market gap, and then back in 2017, the Hyrox basically formed in Germany. And the whole game, it's a combination of running and hybrid fitness exercises.
Okay, without cheating.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the order of the stations?
Oh, come on!
Let's put you on the spot here, man.
I thought you were going to ask me something.
I have mind blanks on this sometimes when people ask me.
So of course you need to run and you need to do exercise.
Yeah.
1 kilometers. And then 1,000 meter ski ergs.
Ski
ergs, And then another kilometer, and then you need to do sled push.
One of the hardest.
For a lot of people, I agree. And another kilometer and sled pull. Another kilometer, and then you need to do burpees, broad jump. A run again, and then rowers. Run again, you need to do farmer carry. Run again, sandbag lunges. Run again, 100 wall balls.
That's the easy
to close
one.
it.
Boom.
Yes.
8 out of 8. Like, you can keep your job.
Oh, come on.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think I mean, everyone kind of knows how, if you're into health and fitness, even if you're not into health and fitness really, everyone seems to have heard of Hyrox now. Me personally, I did the first ever Hong Kong event. Which was over 2 years ago now?
Yeah,
close to 2 years
November.
ago. Yeah, November.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even heard about it. It was my friends that told me about it on a junk boat, right, in Hong Kong, because I'd stopped playing rugby because of concussions, and it was was a boat party with basically people that were exactly the same as me, who were, you know, ex-professional rugby players or had to give up for some reason, old ship sportsmen basically. And they're like, right, mate, just sign up to this. We can do it together, or sign up for doubles. And so I agreed to do it without really thinking.
did a double, right?
I did doubles.
I think you won.
Yeah, we ended up winning, but I think there's a story behind that, and
right.
I think we got very lucky because you then go to the event, and yes, it was a cool event.
Yeah.
Like it was a landmark event for you guys because I think it was the first one in APAC. But again, it was an event at Asia World Expo. It was awesome because it was something very new. But you look back at photos and videos of that event compared to what it is now, and it's like chalk and cheese. It's so different. It's just on a different level, a different scale to what you guys just did in Singapore 2 weeks ago, or the last one that you did in Hong Kong. It's just within the space of 2 years, give or minus, it's just taken off like a rocket ship. And so for me, it's been so cool to see. And that's why I've got so many questions of like the growth, the opportunities, all this sort of stuff, the business side of things, because I just find it such an interesting case study for people that want to do, you know, either launch their own business, work in events, sponsorship, if you're an athlete, if you're not an athlete. I just think there's so many different angles to Hyrox, and that's why I find it so interesting. So getting into it then.
Yeah.
I want to know, so how long have you actually been with the Hyrox team, like officially?
So it's all started, I think now is 2 years ago. And the first event was in Hong Kong. It was in November. I still remember back then we're still under the COVID restriction. It's quite tough. All the races we still need to do a 3-jab vaccinations and do a 24 hours COVID test.
And we had to wear masks until you raced.
Exactly.
Or at least until you warmed
pretty
up.
crazy. I still remember my friends who worked in the vaccination centers like call me a day before the event. It's like, these guys are definitely going to Hyrox. It's like all these big guys coming in.
There's all these athletes coming through to get their booster jabs or something.
Exactly. And so yeah, that was the first year, and that's where we started. I still remember we started with 5 core teammates. We literally have to do everything ourselves, and from the build to the event day to registration, marketing, and just basically we have to do everything ourselves. And now I'm looking back, the team, I think overall in APAC we have roughly about 30 people now, and so it's quite a journey. It's within these 2 years. But yeah, it was 2 years ago. We started off it's actually by chance. It's because in Hong Kong, it's very crazy. The government actually stopped you from doing outdoor events. And
because of COVID?
Because of COVID. But they only allowed you to do indoor events.
That seems so...
I know.
Anyway, I'm not going to comment on that.
I know.
Yeah,
let's not get into that. But that is also the reason why we start looking into indoor solutions, and we stumble across Hyrox, and immediately we know this is something that we need to invest in.
When you say stumbled across it, you just like researched and saw it was kicking off in Europe, or
kind of. But because I've been always in the mass participation sports event industry, I was organizing marathons, running events, and Spartan race, and so it's not too difficult for us to realize Hyrox is such a big thing, but it was never really being brought into this side of the world yet. So we spent some time to study it, the model, and then we reach out to Christian, the founder of Hyrox, and we had a meeting with him. Next thing I know, like a week later, we signed a contract. And it's no brainer for us. So,
but for them though,
yeah.
Like what were those negotiations like? Because were you their only option to bring it to APAC? Or were they sort of teeing that up anyway? Was that part of their like expansion plans?
I think I believe our vision aligned very easily, and it was back then we were very hungry. We have no other basically no other plans. We have all the investment ready. We have a venue ready. We have a team ready. Everyone is hungry for an IP and product. So I think that aligns a lot with Christians.
Yeah.
So we show them the commitment that we will be putting everything that we have and all the times that we have into this, but we need to make sure that we have a bigger area to expand to, not only in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I think it's the negotiation was not really even a negotiation. It was really
difficult.
much not difficult at all. We just talk through it, and then it's aligned, and let's go for it.
Sign the deal, done.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then since then, I mean, Christian must be pretty happy with. I mean, he was in Singapore, right? 2 weeks ago, he competed.
He was, and he flew with me to Melbourne.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah, the guy's energy is unbeaten.
I mean, he ran Hyrox, or he did Hyrox without even putting a time chip on his foot.
Yeah, he did.
I was yelling at him on the wall balls, and then when he finished, I was like, run over the line, and he was just swaggering over, and he didn't even cross the finish line, he just walked off. I was like, mate, what are you doing? And then I looked at his ankle, and he didn't even have a sensor on. I was like, he must love it.
He want to try feeling it in the national stadium,
in the heat, in the humidity, with the vibe, in front of the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So actual Hyrox as a product then. I've got my own ideas of this, and I think quite a lot of people do. What is it about Hyrox, if you had to put your finger on it, that you think has made it blow up so quickly and so fast, and has got so many people just obsessed with the event itself?
I think first of all we found the market gap, and I think if you think about it, like back then in the 80s, before marathon is being created, there's not much people running in the streets, and because of the game, because of the competition, it created this huge demand for people to train for running, to train for the competition, and now running become one of the biggest movement ever. I think there's so many people who go to the gym in a daily basis. There's so many gyms across the world, millions and millions of people, but then there isn't really a competitions for these group of audience. So I think identifying the right target audience was the number one success factor for Hyrox. I think the second success factor is we heavily utilize we say we are a community-driven event. We work with all the local gyms across the regions. Say, for example, Hong Kong, we have 40 gyms, Singapore, 40 gyms. In Australia, we have 300 gyms. And our idea is basically we want to turn every local gyms into a fitness club, a sports club. A little bit like when you join a tennis club, a golf club, you probably never quit it. You have a sense of loyalty, you represent the club. And before Hyrox, there's actually absolutely no loyalty to a gym. You move to another place and you will change your gym immediately. But we want to change that mentality a little bit by having a competition. So now racers actually wear the same shirts together with their mates, train together, lift everyone up. They go to the competitions, and and next thing you know, they bring more people into the community. They bring in their friends and all train together. So that's the whole concept of the community aspects of Hyrox.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. From a user perspective, the first word I wrote down was community. And anytime I've spoken about it to any of my friends or family that have reached out, it's like nothing I've actually ever experienced with health and fitness, especially because I said I used to be a professional rugby player, and so gym and health and fitness was never really a community thing that I was looking for. It was always like my team thing. I had to do it to perform on the weekend. And then when I transitioned into sort of a full-time job and all that sort of stuff, I was never really looking for a community with my gym. Like I had my community with my friends or my
Yeah.
rugby team. And then when Hyrox came along,
Yeah.
it kind of I kind of got forced into it
Mm.
and ended up really, really enjoying it and buying in. Like now I'll, go to the Hyrox events.
Yeah.
I really enjoy emceeing the events. I enjoy the type of training. I'll do open invite sessions
Yeah.
to people that just want to come down to the
Yeah.
track and train.
Yeah.
And I've now become close with people that I wouldn't say I'd never speak to before, but they're in completely different demographic. Like I'll be friendly with, 50 to 60-year-old couple who are doing Hyrox as well.
Yeah.
And then people that are on the elite level. So in the elite 15, and everything in between. And it seems that at these events, at the events, it's like the epitome. That's when everyone's super happy, super pumped to be there.
Totally, yeah.
But it just like seeps down into the gyms. Every gym you go to, there's someone like on the ski erg, on the rower.
Yeah.
And you can tell they're doing a Hyrox session, right?
Totally, you can tell.
So
I
it's
agree.
just a conversation. Oh,
Yeah.
you're training for Hyrox, and everyone just like jumps on the bandwagon, and it's a conversation open.
Yeah, I completely agree. I train at Pure.
Me too. Yeah,
I mean, you usually you go into the gym, you put on your headphone, and you do your thing, right? You never talk to anyone, and hopefully no one talks to you at all. Now it's different. I go to K11, and that floor they have there is perfect for Hyrox training. I still remember 2 years ago, usually there's not much people using that area. Now I go into it, everyone is training for Hyrox, literally. Like you have those 24 kgs, kettlebells there for farmer carry. That's always there.
In use.
This wall ball is always in place there.
Especially like the 2 weeks before a competition.
Exactly.
It's like
now
if
it's
you're like
great.
before, if you prep for an event properly, you're like, oh, maybe like 4 months before you should start seeing stuff like that. But it's always 2 weeks before a Hyrox anywhere in APAC. I'd say Hong Kong have a really good loyal community that will fly to the other APAC events as well. You'll always see the same faces.
I agree.
But yeah, that's one of the things, community for sure.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, but for me, the accessibility of the whole thing.
Yes.
Because for me, the idea of CrossFit is fantastic. Like I've always wanted to get into it. And whenever I've had breaks in my own training or I've gone home to the UK, I've like tried to sign up to a CrossFit for a month, right? A CrossFit box. Yeah. And again, I'm not slamming CrossFit whatsoever because some of the best athletes in the world do CrossFit.
Totally.
And I just could never get my head around it. Like I would really enjoy some of the workouts, and then be completely terrible and injure myself in some of the other workouts. Yeah. Because I'm not a technical Olympic lifter. A lot of the movements are too complex for me, so probably too complex for quite a lot of people as well. I still think there was a good community vibe, but again, there's always all these memes about it. Like if you're into CrossFit, they tell you about it straight away. You hear about it before they walk into a room. I don't think it's the same as Hyrox, but I think Hyrox has that accessibility in the sense that every movement is a functional fitness movement. You don't even have to practice them really, and you could still complete a race because there's no time cap.
Yes.
You're competing against, which is another point, competition. You're competing against your age bracket.
Yeah.
So it levels the playing field. But that accessibility, it just, instead of targeting a niche level of high performance, which I think CrossFit does as well. Yes, there's movement standards to each movement. Yeah. But Hyrox just like blows the doors off the whole thing. Yeah. And it's literally for anyone.
Yeah, I think, when Christian and Mo and the team found Hyrox, they have went through hundreds and hundreds of different workouts, and they end up deciding the formats of what we see now in Hyrox event. And there's a couple of reasons, and one is every movement is what we call a natural body movement. And what that means is, even though you haven't trained it for once in your life, everyone knows how to jump, to throw a ball, to push, to pull something. So it's just, of course, more you train, you can do it faster and better. But then these are all natural movement. Anyone can do it. So we minimize the injury rate as we can. Secondly, there's a little bit of logistic reason to choose this exercise, because the concept of Hyrox is we're doing it in an indoor venue, indoor arena, and the size of the venue, the size of the whole floor place of the venue actually will impact the total capacity of people. How many people we can take on a day. So when we decide the 8 exercise, we need to make sure that it's actually efficiently placed inside the venue.
Inside, yeah.
So for example, if we, back then there were one idea is that we want to do box jump. But you can imagine if we have now, for example, in Singapore, events where we have 75 side wave, you need to place so many boxes there. It doesn't make sense for the space-wise. It also doesn't make sense for logistic-wise. Because we own all the equipment and we basically place them all in 8 40-foot container. We work a little bit like a rock band tour, where we arrive to a location on Friday usually. We set it up, bump in one day, event day and Saturday, and we bump out on Sunday. Next week we can go to another city.
And all that kit travels around with you.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So it's the team. So it's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Get to travel. But having seen the the amount of equipment in Singapore, it gives me the shivers to think of the logistics and operations involved.
Oh, me too. I mean,
because there were 68 sled pushes and sled pulls.
You're right.
in Singapore.
Yes.
And when I walked in the stadium and I saw it in the morning when I was getting ready, I had to get my phone out and take a photo, because it literally looked like an AI photo, because it looked like someone had just stretched it out and it was a glitch, because they were just dead parallel. 68 sled push and sled pulls, and then you think with the pros coming through, and that's over 200 kilos for the push, and so that gets packed up and then shipped around to the next one. And then when you did it in Melbourne on a double event,
so now in APAC we have 2 set of roadshow, one in Asia and one in Australia, because Australia is such a massive market for us. I think this season we're expecting to have 6 events, and we're very likely adding another event as we speak now. So Australia is massive for us. I
mean, it's such a big country anyway. You can feel like you're on tour by just staying in Australia.
Yeah, totally.
One of the other things I think, when I was writing all this stuff down, I was having a think as to why I was so in love with Hyrox. And I think one of the golden nuggets that you guys have come up with is the idea of a World Championships. Because, as you said earlier, I did win the first one in Hong Kong, me and my partner Reese. And why I said there was a story behind that is because I think if we did it now, there's not a chance in hell we'd win, because it's so much more popular and the athletes that come through are so much stronger than that first event in Hong Kong. So we kind of hit the jackpot on that. And it was good. It was good timing.
You never know.
But no one can take that away from me, But I think the idea of having a World Championships that people can qualify for in their age category, in the different race categories as well, is a stroke of genius, because not many people will ever compete in a World Championships in their life. Even me, and I was an ex-professional athlete, and I never competed in a World Championships. So it's a great thing to aim for. And it's out of reach, but it's not too far out of reach that it doesn't feel unattainable, if that makes sense.
No, totally. I think, this is the whole idea of Hyrox. We want to be as accessible as possible, and any people can literally win in Hyrox game and qualify to the World Championship. And this year, I think we have 4,500 and a little bit close to 5,000 races qualified to the World Championship in Nice, and that's actually it's only the top 2% of the races across the whole season are capable to qualify. But next year we talk about 1%, because our number of total racers will probably grow for a double this season.
So I was very smart then, because I deferred my place to next year's
World
Championship.
All right.
So I'm the top 1%, even though I haven't done a race yet this year. I mean, the numbers. I did the Manchester World Championships, and that was insane.
Yeah.
Purely because obviously there's a lot of people there as well, and
Yeah.
it did feel like a smaller venue compared to like a Singapore, even a Hong Kong. And so obviously my mind was going crazy about the logistics and operations. It was mental.
Yeah. But I think, speaking of the championships, I think as the sports grow, we need to improve that. Very soon we'll have the APAC championship, the Asia championships, and we will have this ladder to move up to the world championships. So
similar to CrossFit.
Similar to CrossFit and any sports in the world. And I think we're still very new, very green, but we're definitely scratching the surface now. We are growing bit by bit and creating this platform for our athletes to promote and to grow. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Do you think Hyrox will ever be in the Olympics?
I hope so. I hope we can.
Does that get spoken about?
Sometimes by the media, but I think
guys?
I think for us, our goal is very clear. Especially here in APAC, for the next 2 years, our number one goal is to bring the Hyrox race to all 12 markets, the key markets of APAC. We want to be in every relevant cities, and this task is already very tough for us. And but we are very confident that we will do it. And what happens next, we don't know. So I think sky's the limit.
Of those 12 key markets, which one excites you the most that you aren't already in?
I have to say Japan. Japan is a very interesting market for us, and I believe it can be one of the biggest for us here in APAC. But also it scares us too. It's obviously there's a language barrier, there's a huge cultural difference. And it's never easy. So many people tell us, Japan is so hard to go in, and you guys need to be careful. They run completely differently. But I think the more we enter different markets now, the more confident we gain from that, because we realize how different the market is, and at the same time how similar the market can be. And so far, it's our method is working. And so I think in next season, in February, we will be going into Tokyo for our first event. It will be very interesting for us.
Has that been announced yet publicly?
No, not yet, but I think very soon. We will be there. We'll announce very soon. Tickets will start selling very soon.
That is unreal.
And I just think, right now, especially, we're learning a lot of behavioral change as well. We're seeing a lot of international travelers. Traveling, what we call racecation, has become such a big thing. And like, for example, our first Taiwan event, the Taipei event, we have a total of 1,700 races. And over 60% of the races are actually international travelers. And just Hong Kong alone, we have 750 races traveled.
I was one of those.
And I mean, Hong Kong people love Taiwan.
Yeah.
And it's just a perfect weekend, activity. Go with the boys or in the family, because I think the beauty of Hyrox is it's unlike a marathon. After you run a marathon, you're dead. You can't do anything. Yeah, but Hyrox, I think, is perfect. You can travel on a Friday night after work, Saturday for the race. Saturday night you can still go to the after party, and Sunday you can fly back.
Yeah.
So it's really, really good balance. And I believe the more regions that we grow to, like we will be eventually go to like Thailand, Indonesia, and all these amazing locations for traveling and vacations, I think this behavior will just continue to grow.
Yeah, I think if people are doing it now with the locations you're currently at, which are awesome locations as well, this is why I'm asking the question, because I'm like, I love Thailand and I love these other countries. I'm like, when are we loading up Hyrox in these countries so I can make a holiday out of it?
Very soon.
Because even like the World Championships, we don't know where they are next year, do we? You might.
We don't know.
We don't.
We don't know.
But even that, me and my partner, we're sort of waiting for that announcement to decide what we're going to do or not.
Yes.
Like we're like, right, how big of a holiday are we going to make out of it? Do we even go? Because if it's in Manchester or something, I might not go, or I might go just to see my family. And then
to go Manchester.
I was like, I want to do it in France or Europe, or I would love to do it in Asia, obviously. But But yeah, it's you're exactly right. People are making it's like a new category of holiday, which is great. So moving on then, still obviously on Hyrox, but I want to talk about the sport itself and the longevity in it. Where how do you say in 2 years' time you're in all 12 markets in APAC? It's continued to grow globally, but how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep the sport fresh if you're sticking with the same parameters, the same 8 stations, the same 8-kilometer run? How do you, if at all, how do you keep it fresh and keep innovating?
I think I think having a sports to stick with, the same format, it's absolutely no problem. If you look into like the most traditional sports, like 100-meter run, it's so simple, but it's already hundreds of years. It's never changed. Scientists invest millions and millions of dollars to see how to improve the couple of seconds, and the sport is still there, and it's just same to any other sports. So for us, I think Hyrox right now, the current format, it's perfect balance, and it's striking exactly every what we call a hybrid fitness training. You get to train your endurance side, also your strength and every muscle of your body. Not only you have the perfect challenge, if you train very well, you also look pretty good.
It's true. If you train very well.
So I think we're not worried about the longevity of the sports. For us right now is to grow the sports, to introduce the sports to more people in the world. I think the market is massive, and we're only scratching the surface right now. And if we look into our London event, for example, UK is one of our best-selling market. We're seeing 16,000 races, and it's sold out in 2 minutes. And if you're in London right now, you can not even get the tickets.
You can't get a spectator ticket.
You can't even get one.
I had friends in London reach out to me to ask you guys if they could get spectator tickets.
It's very difficult. Yeah, and I think the same sort of behavior will happen in the rest of the world, and I think we'll be seeing the same thing in Australia very soon, and also in Singapore. We had our first event this year in Singapore, 7,000 races. And we're expecting to have the second one with an expo with 6,000 races, and we are right now almost selling out 70%.
Wow.
So I think the sports will continue to grow, but what next is a good question. And just like any other sports, I think for us, we need to focus on our athletes. We need to focus on their pain point. We need to focus on what do they need. I think as soon as someone signs up for Hyrox, they're starting to think like an athlete. He's starting to think like what to eat, what to wear, how to train, what supplements to take. This is exactly the moment where we need to come in, find the right partners, and solve their pain points, and allow the sports to grow and the ecosystem to grow. So hopefully we'll continue doing the right thing.
I'm sure. I've got no doubt, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's a behavioural change. As soon as people pay online and they've got secured their place in a Hyrox, I've seen people that never played sport, and they start behaving like an athlete. They start worrying about their sleep scores. They start worrying about what they're wearing, their recovery, stretching, mobility, running, mid-foot strikes on runs. And I'm like, this is insane. This is a real behavioral change. And if a sport like Hyrox can do that to the mass population, then that's awesome. I do have some ideas though, on how to keep it fresh. Because I know you guys did an event in Miami.
Yes, we did.
And you did the running. So in Miami, the run was on sand, right?
Yes.
But the stations were
inside the tent.
Inside, right?
Yes.
I think that's awesome. And the only reason I know that is because when I was comparing my times with other people, I saw that pop up on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not that bad." And then I realized it was on sand, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in a world of pain here." One thing I saw in Singapore, which I loved, was spectators. And when I say that, I mean that I saw people in the stands and up close and personal on the wall balls with beers in their hands. and drinking beers with the DJ and really getting into sort of yelling at everyone on the wall balls. And then you have the Thunderdome, the 2-story spectator stand. And I'm sure you've had that in other Hyrox competitions, but I hadn't seen that personally yet in a Hyrox event. And so that got me thinking of Hyrox as a true spectator sport.
You're absolutely right.
And you got stadiums like the National Stadium in Singapore. I'm sure the more events you do, the more bigger venues you'll fill out and everything. But it got me thinking about really becoming a sports event. Like you go to an NBA game, it's beers to your seat, you know, music, entertainment, everything.
Yeah.
And you've already got the DJ, you've got the Thunderdome, you've got the MCs, you've got the beers. I'm thinking, how is that something that you guys are actively thinking about?
100%.
Is how to engage the spectators as well as just the athletes?
100%. I think if we want the sports to grow to the next level, first level is definitely get the race part, you know, correct, which I believe now we're in the right track. I think the next level is definitely turn the sports into a spectator sports, give spectator more reason why they need to come back and again and watch the game, and increase the entertainment value of that. And I think, you know, that will be definitely something in the next step that we need to focus a lot in. We tried already for a couple of different testings, like as you see the Thunderdome, and we have grandstand in some of the events. We have the DJ, we have the light effects, but, you know, I think, again, the sky is the limit. We can do a lot more things. I think
also the after party.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those, when you run them at every event, it's a huge buy-in.
You will probably see in this season we're starting to roll out something very, very cool. And I think we're really heavily benefiting from doing our events indoor. So we can play with a lot of things. The lighting effects, the sound effects, and we will roll out something really cool as a testing and see how the market react to it. But I think, you know, this will exactly fit into what you're thinking right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so off the back of that then, is it too early to start talking about like TV rights and things like this? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but when you do like the elite races and the elite 15 and things like that, is it only streamed on YouTube right now, live streamed on YouTube?
You're right, in our channels right now. But I think, you know, as a sport to grow, I think obviously our athletes is number one, you know, in the driver of the whole sports. You know, they work hard to train and to go and compete. But for us, I think our role is we create a platform to actually expose or amplify that to let more people to watch these amazing athletes. And I think definitely media, it's going to be, you know, something that we want to get to as a sport. Any sports we do want to do the same. So start from last season's, all the major event is live streamed. It's currently live streamed in our channels only. But this season, we'll continue to grow our productions, putting more investments into it to make a better production levels product. And who knows, next thing, maybe, you know, there's, you know, different media outlets want to, you know, take part in it, and we can grow the sports together with them, and it can go to the next level. But media is always something that we, you know, as a sport, we aim for and hopefully get to very soon.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think the NBA is just closing like a world record deal for their media rights in the US. And so I'd imagine with all sports, the media rights is where one of the big checks are written as well for the business as another revenue stream. You've got the events, the, you know, affiliate gyms, merchandise, ticket sales, all that sort of stuff.
Media right, live streaming right, and maybe betting right. I mean, there's
I didn't even think about
list
betting.
goes on.
Wow, yeah, that would be great. Imagine live bets on the Elite 15. That'd be awesome.
Unbroken wall ball.
yes, that's another good one. Okay, to wrap things up then, Gary, I don't want to hold you for too long, but going back to the podcast itself, Abnormal, where we want to shine a light on normal people doing abnormal things. And I think you're a really, really good example of that. When I say normal, I don't mean that as a bad thing, because I used to always think it was a bad thing to be called normal when I was growing up and as a kid. But actually, I've learned over time that being normal is okay and it's good. And it's important to appreciate the normal things in life. And appreciate that you can be normal while still achieving these abnormal feats and things in your life. So if you were, to anyone that sees themselves listening as a normal person, and they've got something in their life or in their mind that they want to achieve or work towards, which is abnormal for them, what's the one piece of advice that you would give that person?
That's probably the toughest question of of the night. I think, I don't consider myself as anything special. It's super normal. So is my team. I think one thing that we share in common is we are very passionate in what we do. We work very hard and we don't take everything as granted. I think every day our team we really ask ourselves, do you think you will ever get a chance to create a new type of sport ever in your lifetime? If no, then work very hard. This is your golden opportunity. Keep on doing it. I think it's what wakes us up every day and keep us going every day. And seeing what we are doing is actually not only bringing our self-satisfaction, it's also changing people's life. That's actually really, it means a lot for us. So hopefully we can continue to do that and inspire more people and make the world a little bit healthier through that.
For sure.
Did I answer your question?
You did.
I
did.
Okay.
What I got from that was, follow your passions.
Totally.
I think it's important for people who are listening or watching to just see you as a normal person as well. And the guests that I get on in the future, that's exactly the light I want shone on them. For me, an abnormal person would be someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, and there's no point trying to get them on the show and calling them normal because they're not. But it's awesome. It's awesome that you've come on. Thanks again for giving up your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And it's great to see someone like yourself who has a pretty normal background to do something so cool and that is affecting so many of us in a very positive way. So thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
Legend. Cheers, mate.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Abnormal Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to on right now, as it really goes a long way to growing the show. Thank you and see you in the next one.